Hi everybody, it's Miss T here again for 20 minutes with Miss T, and I'm super excited about this session because it is the week of our workshop. We do have a workshop on this Saturday, so if you haven't already registered with the link that we sent out this week, make sure you do it today, at least before Wednesday, and registration I believe closes Thursday, I think at 5 or maybe even 7 p.m. But definitely bring a friend. Everybody's gonna get a chance to sort of get all the new exciting things that we're gonna have all of this year. We have some great folks coming in to host. Some of your coaches will also be in the rooms in the workshop, so I'm super excited. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our old business and new business. Old business, again, is if you haven't done so already, go ahead and register for the workshop. We hope to see everybody out at Live in Peace. The bus times are going to be sent. It should be given out in this practice as well. And we are just looking forward to all of that. Also, if you haven't done so already, for old business, it'd be to bring in your permission slips, and that is your official SVUDL permission slip that has all of the information for this year, plus the medical release, plus all of your other things that you'll need to participate. And then last but not least for old business is we do have two courtroom visits, sorry, not courtroom. We have one courtroom visit and one law firm visit coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so if you have not already attended one of these amazing opportunities and trips, please sign up with your coaches. And there's two of those. One is going to be to a law firm that's going to help us work on some of our negotiating strategies and how we actually use those in real life. And then another one is going to be an actual courtroom visit. So we're going to get to go to one of our district courthouses and sit in on some cases and actually speak to some judges about how they adjudicate cases, how they see things, and then get to put our debate perspective on it. So we're really excited about that. And our last piece of old business is that we're just super excited to celebrate the new year, whether it be the Lunar New Year and also our Gregorian New Year for everybody. Just looking forward to the new thing. So we know we're going to miss some of you on the 28th. And if you are celebrating, Happy New Year's then, and we will miss you, but we will expect to see you all on February 18th at our Ella Baker tournament, which is our last piece of old business. So do not forget to save the date. February 18th at Mount Pleasant High School is going to be hosting. Shout out to Mount Pleasant, and we're looking forward to that tournament. The exciting thing about that tournament is that the varsity champion from that tournament will be able to represent us at the April tournament for the National Association of Urban Debate Leagues. And they will be traveling to Chicago with myself and Ms. Chantrice and their coach, and getting a chance to represent us nationally. So we're also super excited about that. On to new business. For new business, again, we have our 2 visits coming up, and so we are seeking new members to go out, and all you are looking for, all we're looking for is folks who dedicated on their team and who may have interest in law and want to get a chance to go out and be in a real firm and meet real lawyers and get a chance to network. So if you haven't, again, had the opportunity to do that, please sign up today for that. Second, we are still accepting submissions for our logo and t-shirt and graphic design contest. So if you have any submissions, please submit them. And then finally for new business is we are going to get ready to offer some more support for students. So we will be having a debater portal that will have lots of videos and tools and things to use after practice so that you can keep building on the skills and keep getting better at debate. So we are going to be releasing that soon, as well as a coach portal, so the coaches will have the same thing. And so we're just really excited about that. We may be calling you out to be interviewed or be a part of that video, and what we really want is your input and your voice on that, and what would make SVUDL even better to meet the needs that our debaters have and our coaches have. So we're excited about all of those things. We do have a great lecture today on negative strategy, and I actually wanted to make sure I had a real nice chunk of time to talk about that. So we actually finished our old business and new business inside of the 5-minute period. So super excited about that. Remember, as I do these videos, I'm going to be doing things that I want you to do in your round. So watching time management, making sure your word usage is tight and succinct, and that your point is clear to get across. So I'm super excited about that. So now transitioning into our topic for the day, which again, we're excited because our workshop is coming up. And so what we're going to be doing is using our workshop as almost like mini tournaments. When you do your rotations, in every room, you're going to have a time to work on a skill that will be helpful to you in a debate round. So we're going to really highlight the things that are happening in round and then narrow in on those. So for this lesson, we're going to focus on developing a generic negative strategy. And the reason we're going to focus on that is because we're halfway through the year. The cases haven't really changed, but your strategy might need to shift. You've heard different people argue their case a certain way. Hopefully you've had your flow sheets and all of your notes, and so you may have a different way of arguing one case against another. And so having a good negative strategy and a good generic negative strategy is going to be the key to going into all of your negative rounds more confident. But also, if you develop this on against other cases, you can start to do it for your case and then also have better affirmative answers. And so the better big picture you have for your negative strategy and the more confident you can be about your negative strategy, no matter the case, the better off you will get in your debate rounds. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And basically, it's like, how do you design a sound negative strategy? How do you put that together? Well, there are a couple things you want to think about when doing that, and I'm going to go through those. And then what we're going to do is have students develop their negative strategy outline and practice doing their 1NC speeches. And then we're going to also practice doing our 2NR speeches. And basically all that means is that you're going to outline your shells, learn how to read this as shells and everything. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. And then you will read your 1NC. We'll have a rubric to see, does it meet these criteria? And then you'll read your rebuttal speeches. You'll do your rebuttal speeches to see if this generic negative strategy works. And we'll give you some scenarios and things like that. So let's get started. Okay, so here's some things to think about when we're thinking about our negative strategy. How do we design a negative strategy? What are the pieces we need? What is the big picture goal? And then what are the blocks we can stick together? Okay, so first, understand that this generic strategy is going to be the most important sort of aspect of your preparation and feeling prepared on the negative. It's important to focus your energy on like logical positions that make a coherent story that can be dragged through a whole debate, extended properly, and also sort of not contradict or be sort of weak in an area. So you need to sit back and sort of think about that in a whole and think about two main areas of a strategy. One would be your generic strategy that could sort of be run against any kind of case, depending on the links. They have generic links, and that it's one that you can pull out in general. The other negative strategy you do want to think about is your specific negative strategy, and that's going to be direct answers to cases that you've hit, and that's going to come from your flows and your debates before this. So we're going to look at how you could use your flows to create some blocks and things as well, but knowing that you have these sort of specific and a generic strategy. We're going to focus today on the generic strategy part of this, and how is it that you build a strategy that's going to work, for instance, against a case you've never heard. So first thing you do, first step, is to, when you're brainstorming, go ahead and do cross-checks on the 1AC, on the affirmative. Ask yourself questions about the affirmative. What are the basic assumptions that the affirmative case is making? Those assumptions are going to be the basis for whatever attack that you do on the affirmative. So as you're questioning yourself, you want to think about, do they have a philosophy that, is detrimental? Is the language or the linguistic makeup of the plan detrimental? Are there better ways to solve the problem? Are there other pieces or layers of the problem that are going to be more traumatic for the affirmative team than the negative? And what that does is that's going to help you do a couple of things. One, it's going to help you see, are there any kind of procedural or framework arguments I can run? Those are arguments that come before the discussion of if the merits of the plan make sense. For instance, does this plan use a capitalistic frame when it goes? Does it use a sexist frame or a frame based on racial prejudice? Does this affirmative have any financial implications that we need to think about? Is there a better way to solve this with using less resources? And then the last piece of that, the way you tie together, is these answers are going to be the ones that are the foundation for whatever generic positions you run. That's first. But two, they're going to help you design some other strategies against the affirmative. So if you know the answers to these questions, you can start to develop counter plans, topicality arguments, and even write dissas that can meet these answers to the questions that you have. So again, in review, what you're going to do is when you're brainstorming, you ask these specific questions about the affirmative before you actually are in round, and that will help you develop these generic negative strategies. And you could create a grid with all the affirmatives you hit and answer those questions, and then that helps you sort of see what generic pieces you can put together to answer them. The second thing you want to remember about your generic negative strategy is not to have repeating parts. The case arguments that you use for the negatives should have a set of responses that aren't redundant. Now, here's one way to avoid that. One way to avoid that is to, once you have the shells together that you're going to use, actually go ahead and write up block templates where you write out what you would say using either prompts or things to guide you in your thoughts. For instance, your blocks may start with, here's all the reasons why inherency wrong, here's why the links are wrong, here's why the impact level outweighs. And you need to not repeat that in your generic strategy. In other words, don't run a capitalism critique that says that they use a capitalistic frame and that that's all bad, and then run an argument about financial literacy and have the same impacts. What you want to do is make sure that you're not being repetitive and redundant with your generic strategy, because you want to have different places that can hit the same arguments. The other thing what you want to do is avoid a disad or critique or a decides that have the same links or the same impacts. Again, if you're going to argue two separate positions, make sure that one, the plan is connected to them differently, but two, that the impacts are different. So that way, when you get to the end of the debate, the other team, the affirmative team, can't say, well, Judge, here's the only impact they have. They're just arguing it in two places. Third, number three. The number three way to design your negative strategy is to avoid inconsistent or contradictory parts, okay? One is really tricky as a negative to run arguments that are contradictory, because then you have to debate them. You and your partner get confused. There's this back and forth. There's all this thing that you have to go through, particularly when you can only win on one or the other. So if the arguments say things in which, well, they can't go together anyway, and you have to choose one at the end of the debate, it doesn't make sense to do that. Plus, contradictions set up the possibility for the affirmative to be able to get out of them both by proving that you're a contradiction. So you don't want to have things that go against one another. For instance, saying capitalism is good on one disad, but saying that you run a cap K and that's going to be feeding your impacts on the other. One of those you're going to have to choose, and getting into that debate is another thing you'll have to get out of. Number four. Number four is, when you design your negative strategy, think about the end of the debate too, and put positions in there that you know you can kick out of. For instance, you should have topicality arguments as a part of your generic strategy, so that maybe this is a procedural argument. It comes before debating the merits of the affirmative case, but this is also an argument that's easier to kick out of. In other words, you can say, hey, Judge, first we would assume that based on the discussion that the team does not meet their topicality requirements, and so that's an argument against them. Once the debate is inside and you're saying, okay, I don't have any offense on topicality, they may be topical, and this is taking up more valuable time for me, I can kick out of this argument. Now, here's the trick about that. You may not kick out of an argument on the negative if it has offense on it by the affirmative that you have not answered. Once an affirmative team puts any kind of offensive arguments on a case, make sure, or on a position, make sure you answer those before you kick out of it. Because what happens is, if the affirmative has labeled them as an offensive argument that has weight in the round, that needs to be weighed in the round, and you've kicked out of it, you've also conceded to the fact that those arguments could win the debate for the affirmative team. So it's very, very careful that you think about what arguments can be kicked out of and how to strategically do that at the end of the debate. Ideally, when the negative team is thinking about splitting the block, they're thinking about this argument, but also they need to extend certain arguments in the negative block that they won't need to cover in the 2AR, because even a small concession could mean a big difference in judging the round. For example, if a negative team could extend the topicality argument in the 2NC, which the 1AR might spend a minute answering, then that means the 1AR has already spent a fourth or fifth of their of their speech. And the negative could then concede this topicality argument, gaining an extra minute for the 2NR to discuss something else, okay, that the 1AR talked about. And if you have that extra minute in a 5-minute speech, it's a huge strategic advantage. So it makes sense for you to be thinking strategically about where you're going to kick out of before you kick out of it. And then last, for all of what you're thinking about when you're doing your affirmative, Design strategies that are going to appeal to a wide variety of audiences and judges. Do not take one single strategy as your negative strategy and think that's going to be it. Some judges are going to be more conservative on debate theory, and there are going to be some that are more liberal. Some are going to love 3 T violations and 1 disad. Some's going to like 1 critique. Whatever it is, have multiple scenarios and be sure to ask your your judges before the round what their preferences are. What do they think about procedural arguments versus case impacts? How do they weigh in-round implications versus out-of-round implications? And I think that it's risky to take a strategy and say this is the end-all be-all and this is the one that's going to work. It's better to have some different ways to float. So with those 5 steps, what we're going to do now is take a pause from the video part of it. We're right at our 20 minutes, and we are going to develop a 1NC strategy that's going to include our shells that we want to use. So this is the shell of the disad. It is just the 3 cards that lay out the uniqueness, the link, and the impact. That is called a shell, and that's what you read in your first constructive speech on the negative. So whatever disad you run, the only part you're reading is going to be the shell. Then you will add potentially a topicality argument, and that will go in your piece as well. The last piece that you should add to your 1NC strategies as we do this is going to be some blocks that you've already pre-written. And these things will help you extend the big story of the picture and make sure that you're clear negative strategies together. And so basically what you're going to do is make sure you include analytical arguments that help you set up the end of the debate. So we're going to try that. There is going to be a sheet to help you along, and your coaches can help you along. But more importantly, if you have any questions or or wondering how to go deeper into this, feel free to email me at tsmith@svudl.org, and I hope to see you all Saturday. Look forward to our video next week, and good luck with all the prep on your generic negative strategies this week. Have a great day. Bye.